Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is October 18th, and right now we are looking at the mid-level water vapor loop. We got the state of Washington, Oregon here. There's the Hawaiian Islands. Check out our atmospheric river. It is now moving into western BC. It will be including portions of the Pacific Northwest here over the next few days. We've got some windy systems, including as we go through the afternoon and evening tonight that we're going to look at, then maybe again this weekend, and then maybe again yet as we go through next week as well. So you're going to hear me be talking about some fantasy windstorm forecast through the extended, but in the meantime, we have a couple potentially fairly windy systems moving into the Pacific Northwest. We're going to go over that in some detail as we go through the video this morning. And if you guys want to know where I'm posting the most recent updates here, I'm moving over to Blue Sky here. So if you want to check me out over there, go ahead and do that. Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. And yeah, the in-between video updates here as far as fantasy windstorm forecasts and all kinds of cool stuff going on here across the west coast of North America. Check me out there. Now, taking a look at Seattle yesterday, 55 degrees, 60 is the average high for this time of year. 500ths of an inch, slowly building up a little bit of rainfall here, but we're going to get some better totals coming up in the next few days for Seattle. Not quite to an inch yet, and we average almost 4 inches for the month of October. So check it out. Snohomish County northward, coastal areas, Puget Sound, Island counties, San Juan's here, northwest Washington coastline, and Vancouver Island, western BC. We got a wind advisory up here for some of these areas. Some stronger winds coming in here. Some pretty impressive gusts showing up in some of the high resolution models. We'll look at that here in a moment. And we've got another system moving in through the weekend here as well that we're going to be watching very closely. Late breaking wave could pack a punch for the region. So I selected this station here across Vancouver Island up near Tofino, and you can see it is raining heavily right now. That atmospheric river is already making its presence noted, and you can see the winds updating there. If you want one of these stations, I highly recommend it. Click on that link down below to save 10%. So atmospheric river scale here. So atmospheric rivers have a very basic definition. They're based on duration and the integrated vapor transport that moves over any given area here. And not all atmospheric rivers have the same impact. Some of them can be beneficial, especially the weaker ones and the early in the season ones. But you know, once you get later in the season, if you've got saturated ground and you start to bring strong or extreme exceptional atmospheric rivers into your location, then they can cause problems and flooding. But we are in the early portions of the season, so the ground will be able to accompany much of this water that falls. But of course, if you're still dropping it too fast and furious, then you're going to be causing some flooding, which could be the case across some of the Olympics, maybe the North Cascades and a lot of western British Columbia. But again, now taking a look at the integrated vapor transport, you can see being driven by this low pressure center right into towards Haida Gwaii. So very strong winds up here off of Vancouver Island and some western BC this morning also. And some of that's going to translate, like I mentioned, down across northwest Washington. So if we put that into motion, you can see the atmospheric river burrowing into Vancouver Island here. And then it kind of bounces around a bit here as we go through the weekend. We're going through Saturday afternoon here. And then we're going to get this frontal system that swings down across the area. And what we're going to be watching in the meantime is this late breaking system right off the coastline. Those can cause some problems, especially if they deepen a little bit more. What the weather models are saying is this tracks right across the northwest Washington coastline tip, right across Vancouver Island and through western British Columbia. More on that here in a moment. Stay tuned. If we look at the wind gusts right now, look at this, 86 miles per hour, 64. We got some very strong winds at this low pressure system. You can see some gusts up over 50 miles per hour all the way up towards western BC there. The wind has not started yet here for the northwest interior or the Washington coast. It's just a little bit breezy right now, but the stronger winds are incoming as we go through the day today. Now take a look at the European. This is what's going on as of last night's model run here. So there goes the atmospheric river, and there's going to be the sharp precipitation gradient right here across western Washington. Initially not including Seattle, but the Olympic Mountains and the Cascades will be getting a lot. Vancouver Island, and you can see as we go on in through Saturday morning here, and Seattle's going to be like, hey, where's this atmospheric river at? While it's pouring just to the areas of the north. Then eventually, as we go on in through the day Sunday, this front is going to start to sag south and bring more of that rainfall as we get the frontal system passage here across Seattle and down towards Portland, Oregon coastline here, Cascades as we go through Sunday night. Now we're headed on in towards Monday morning here as we finally get this system through here. And then we're going to be watching another storm system here. That's right. We got the atmospheric river, a windstorm potentially moving through as we go through later this weekend. And then another system out here that's going to want to try to eject across the Pacific Northwest. So very active weather incoming. If we take a look at total precipitation in inches, I'm going to scroll through this relatively fast. You can see as we scroll through the weekend, eventually Seattle starts to get included, then eventually places across the Willamette Valley and some of western Oregon as well. But you can see the lion's share across Vancouver Island, North Cascades. Check it out. Some of these areas showing up, 5+ inches here as this atmospheric river is going to be moving across the area. And then this next system out here across Pacific, which we'll be watching. If we take a look at 100-meter wind speeds, we'll look at the timing here. So we're right about it's about 9:30 as I'm doing this briefing. So pretty close to here. You can see why the strong winds are across some of the water areas here off Vancouver Island. And then you can see as we go towards, it's 11 a.m. And then by the time we go towards the early afternoon, about 2 p.m., look at these winds really kick up across the northwest interior, straight at Georgia, Washington coast. And then some blustery conditions possible for the southern Puget Sound, central Puget Sound, and further down the Washington towards the Oregon coast as we go through this afternoon as that system kicks through. And then we're watching this wave out here. See this developing low pressure center right there? If that develops a little bit deeper, that's going to bring some strong winds. It's already scheduled to bring a fairly decent punch here across the region, and you can see the winds really pick up as we go through the day Sunday for the Washington coast and potentially for the Puget Sound and the Oregon coast as well. More on that here in a moment. Now looking at the GFS, this one is hot off the presses. That's why I'm showing you this. I'm going to update that, make sure we have all of the most recent model run here. There's the strong winds this morning, picks up this afternoon, Washington coastline, northwest interior, perhaps some of the Puget Sound, getting some gusty winds as we go through tonight. We'll look at the high resolution models here in a moment. But then as we scroll through this weekend, you can see that atmospheric river frontal system here kind of draped right across the Washington coastline. And then look at the GFS developing that next system out here. That would bring some gusty conditions for western Washington, Puget Sound, northwest interior again, Oregon coastline. We really got to watch those systems. They can pack a surprise punch, especially if that low comes in a little bit deeper, as a lot of times they do. The models don't catch that. They miss it by a few millibars, and that can really add to the punch and the pressure gradient across the area. Now, taking a look at the North American model, I'm going to show you this morning's run here versus last night's run. We're looking at pressure. So this is the system bringing the windy conditions as we go through the day today. You can see the pressure falls here across northwest interior, decent pressure gradient up and down the Washington coast towards Vancouver Island. But then we look out towards Sunday here. So watch what happens. You'll see the pressure falls happening off the coastline here. And as of last night, you can kind of see the difference starting to emerge here. Look at the better development of that little low pressure center there versus what the models were showing last night. So that is why we got to watch much more of a dynamic pressure gradient here along the coastal areas. Would bring some winds down across, potentially all the way down across western Washington, down the Oregon coastline, as well as the Puget Sound. So that's what we're watching there. And if we look at wind speeds, you'll really get the picture here. So as we go through the afternoon, here we go. The winds pick up here. Sound like a broken record with that. Bear with me here. And then we scroll on in towards Saturday. You can see the frontal system with the atmospheric river right on the Washington coastline. And then the next system starts to develop. And you can see, of course, with that deeper low, look at the wind difference here just between the 6 hours on the North American model. A much weaker wave here last night. And the models trended a little bit stronger with that, bringing the strong winds all the way up towards Vancouver Island, Washington coast, northwest interior. And you could see this would bring a fairly strong wind event here to the Washington coast, and then eventually through the Puget Sound. Look at some of these winds pick up as we go through the day Sunday. So if you got a child's soccer game out there or whatnot, or whatever you're doing out there during the day Sunday, you're going to want to watch the forecast there very closely, as that system looks like it might pack a punch here as we go through the day Sunday. Now, take a look at the European. Let's see what the European model says here. This is last night's run. There is our wind this morning and this afternoon for the northwest interior, a strong pressure gradient there. And then you can see that wave developing here as we go through the day Sunday. And, the European isn't as high resolution as the North American or the high resolution model here, but you can see it does show some of that low pressure developing here and bringing some blustery conditions as that low races across the Rocky Mountains there. And then we start to scroll off into the extended forecast, and this is the fantasy storm we're watching out here. More on that here as we go. Looking at the wind gust here, just a little bit of a timing here, and I want to show you some of this, because look at Bellingham gusting up over 50 miles per hour as we go through this afternoon, evening. Look at the NAM wants to paint Seattle at 37. Look at Olympia and Tacoma 42. And then as we go on in through tonight, check it out. It shows Seattle at 44 miles per hour as we're going through tonight. So yeah, tonight could pack a bit of a punch here for Washington coast and Puget Sound, Cascades here. So heads up for that. And then we scroll off and we watch that next system here, and you can see how it develops. Again, a little bit deeper on this morning's model run here, bringing some gusty conditions here, which is no doubt going to be changing here over the next day or two, which we'll be watching closely. And here's the HRRR. So this is the high resolution rapid refresh. So we go through the day today, really good model agreement on the very strong winds across the northwest interior there. And then we watch to see what it has in store as we go through the day Sunday. There's that frontal system draped on the Washington coast. And then there goes that wave right at the end of the run here. This only goes out 48 hours. So this is as far out in the future we can look on the high resolution model. But you can see that system crawling up the coastline here. We'll see if that trend's weaker or stronger here as we go through the day today. Seattle, Tacoma, you can see some mid-30s here as we go through this first system. Then the second system there, look at that, 43 miles per hour, and even some higher gusts in some of the ensembles here. So the Europeans starting to paint a fairly windy picture as well. And this is what was shown yesterday afternoon. This is the fantasy windstorm off towards the end of next week that we've been watching. So you can kind of see there are some 50+ mile per hour gusts lurking out there, but some huge model disagreement on just how that system is going to evolve. And right now, we're just kind of in wait and see mode. It's just a fantasy forecast for now. Quickly, here we go with the initial system. This is for today, northwest Washington coastline here, gusts up over 50 miles per hour possible. And then the next system, still big uncertainty on just how strong that wave is going to be as it approaches the coastline. This is Hoquiam, gust into the 40s, not out of the question today. And then that next system as we go through the day Sunday. This is Whidbey Island, some strong winds incoming, so prepare for that as you go through the day today, gusting probably up into the lower 50s. And then the next system here, so you can kind of see the model uncertainty with that. Same thing with Bellingham, some strong gusts rolling in today, then that uncertainty with the next one. So if we look at the GFS here versus the GFS as of yesterday afternoon, so this is this morning's run here. There goes our atmospheric river. We're scrolling off in here, and you can kind of see how it sets this low a little bit further back to the west. That would bring a little bit more of a punch here. So models in the North American and the GFS kind of trending a little stronger with that one. You really got to watch those late breaking systems there. It can really pack a punch, as I've been mentioning. Now, this is something interesting. This is a probability of the surface winds reaching 34 knots or greater. And as we go through today, you can kind of see the winds here, and then the next system there, so the European kind of showing that. And then if we look off into the fantasy windstorm out here, you can see as this ejects back across Pacific Northwest, huge uncertainty on how that's going to unfold. And that's why that is a fantasy forecast, but this is for later next week, just something we're going to be watching closely. Now, looking off into the extended forecast a little bit, we've got the artificial intelligence European on the left versus the GFS ensemble mean here on the right. Let's put that into motion. And here we go with our atmospheric river and frontal system. The cutoff low there. Good model agreement between all models that cutoff low is going to form and then eventually get lifted back across the Pacific Northwest here. And then we could remain even active after that. You see some interesting polar lobes trying to take shots at us. Could be wind potential with that. Some mountain snows, some heavy rainfall. Who knows? Thunderstorm activity. We'll see how that develops, but it looks like we're going to remain fairly active as we go through the end of October. And then, you can kind of see how things really diverge to the extent as the European wants to build a ridge here and the GFS still is troughing as we go on into the early portion of November. You take that with a grain of salt. So looking at the national blend of models, how much precipitation are we expecting? You can see Vancouver Island, again, the lion's share, the Olympic Mountains and North Cascades really getting some nice amounts. But you can see as you go through the day Saturday, Seattle not showing much precipitation until you get towards Saturday evening. They finally start to bring some of that down across the central Puget Sound and eventually across western Oregon. But the huge amounts will remain across southwest BC and Vancouver Island, Olympic Mountains, and the Cascades as we go on in through next week. And then you can see that next system approaching the coastline here and showing some pretty good precipitation amounts across Seattle, Willamette Valley, Oregon coast as we go on in through the end of October here. So definitely the storm track, it looks like it's going to be with us here through the end of the month. But anyway, I know I threw a lot at you guys there with the windstorm potential coming up. I'll probably be posting about that again on Blue Sky today, any updates that'll be going on. And there's a chance that I may be updating things. I may even put out another video here tomorrow, like 2 videos tomorrow or another video here tonight, depending on what the models show as I see the 12Z European roll in and as I watch the North American and the high resolution models roll in today as well. So anyway, yeah, windstorm season and storm season is upon us here, and this later portion of October here is no exception. So anyway, hope you guys are having a good day. Otherwise, click like and subscribe. We're going to do this all again tomorrow at the latest, and I will talk to you guys then.